are we going to find out where the $9.7 trillion that's off the books, where it went?
You mean under the assumption that this becomes law?
Yeah.
If this becomes law, then yes, there will be an audit, and it will be conducted by the General Accounting Office. And what will happen is that the Controller General will initiate the process as a response to Congress, because this page 2 of this bill actually calls for an audit by the end of 2010. That's the two things that it does: is it clips out the paragraph that stands in the way of transparency, and then secondly, it says, I want to have an audit. So Congress is actually calling for and causing an audit if this becomes law. And in response to that, the Controller General will initiate the action and cause an audit to occur. And the General Accounting Office, the GAO, will actually physically go over to the Federal Reserve and conduct the audit. In terms of what they expect to find, I expect that the GAO will go over with an absolutely neutral view. That's the way auditors do. They go in with a totally neutral view. They have no interest in one way or another other than finding out where the money went and those kinds of things. So without any preconceived notions whatsoever, and I really have none, I think it's healthy and good to get this visibility. I think the visibility will help to improve the situation regardless. Sure, there's going to be debate. It'll raise debate, but debate is what we want, because debate is what brings about creativity in our solutions.
Okay, it just reminded me of another video, a very short one, and another just for some kind of humorous relief here, just a moment before we shift gears here. Mr. Max Kaiser, who I frequently feature on this program, he has a little snippet this morning about how we might get the information from the Treasury. And so if you'll play this video for us here,
I've got an idea for Hank Paulson and Tim Geithner.
I remember, yeah, okay.
I've got an idea for Hank Paulson and Tim Geithner. How about waterboarding for Tim Geithner and Hank Paulson? Sound reasonable? I think so. I've got an example of how this might work. Here's my representation for either Hank Paulson or Tim Geithner. You can take your pick as represented by this pirate, and we'll see, how they can take it. They can dish it out, but can they take it? So let's see how this waterboarding and imaging experiment works. There he is. You got them all. He looks like that guy from, what's his name, Mancow. We're going to set him up. Or Hannity. I think he wanted to do this, but never did. Here, we're going to do it. Geithner. Let's see what we got here. Can you take it? Can you take it? Can you take it up? Can you take it? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. He's freaking out. He's freaking out. The answer, of course, is no.
So given that we can't, it's unlikely that Mr. Geithner or Mr. Paulson are going to volunteer themselves to be waterboarded in order to cough up this information about where's this hole in Daddy's arm where the money all went. There's some other, you may be aware before the program, there's some other bills up before Congress, and can you speak to those? There's some alternative approaches perhaps to H.R. 1207 and what those mean if they are meaningful.
Thanks. Yes. Actually, what happened here is on February 26th of this year, Dr. Paul authored a bill, H.R. 1207, the one that we're talking about, 2 pages long, and asks for only 2 things. One, cut out the offending paragraph in the old antiquated code, and start an audit, complete an audit by 2010. There is a companion bill that on March 16th, that was on February 26th. 3 weeks later, on March 16th, Senate Bill S604, authored by Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont. He submitted the identical bill into the Senate. And the point is that you have to have a bill pass the House of Representatives, and then you have to have a companion bill entered into the Senate and pass the Senate. I want to say that S604, which I have a copy of right here, is also 2 pages. It is line for line, comma for comma, and period for period, identical to H.R. 1207, one for the Senate, one for the House.
So Bernie Sanders is a co-sponsor, essentially. I mean, at least in effect, he is a co-sponsor in the Senate, or he's the counterpart.
He's the counterpart
to Dr. Paul, but operating in the Senate.
He authored the one. He authored 604. He sponsored 604, and what he did is he took the exact copy of H.R. 1207. The only distinction between the two is one of them is called the Federal Reserve Sunshine Act. That's what he calls the Senate one. And the other one is called the Federal Reserve Transparency Act.
Yeah, so there's two different words for the same thing. Transparency means you can see through it and see what's going on, and sunshine means you're going to let the light in so you can see what's going on in the dark place. Yeah.
And these two bills are identical to one another. Mr. Sanders did this as a companion 3 weeks after Ron Paul submitted his bill. So these two bills, if this one travels through the House and this one 604 travels through the Senate, and pass both of these, then they will not even need any significant joint committee hearing. They will have such a joint committee hearings, but since they're identical bills, they will simply be signed and sent to the President at that time, and then it would become law if the President would sign it. Now, there is on May, several months later here, May 14, well, just a couple of weeks ago here, today being what, May 29?
I believe so, yeah.
So here just 2 weeks ago, Representative Dennis Kucinich, a Democrat from Ohio, he submitted his own bill, H.R. 2424, to Congress. Very curious. He is not a co-sponsor on this H.R. 1207, and of course the question there becomes why.
Now, I've seen Dennis Kucinich. I've seen him speak out on the subject of the Federal Reserve. In fact, I remember in the last presidential election that Ralph Nader and the lady Cynthia McKinney and Chuck Baldwin and all supported the auditing of I guess they called for an audit of the Federal Reserve, right, at that time. But Dennis Kucinich also was sort of leaning that way, as I recall.
Well, this bill here is really a confusing bill to have out there. It's H.R. 2424. Why Dennis Kucinich just didn't simply become a co-sponsor of H.R. 1207, we do not know the answer to that question. Why he submitted his own bill. I can tell you the differences between the bill, and the differences between them are enormous.
No, enormous, okay.
They are absolutely enormous. This is called, the name of this bill, 2424, is the Federal Reserve Credit Facility Review Act. And here's the problem. H.R. 1207 goes in and clips out the paragraph that prevents people from auditing. H.R. 2424 leaves the law in place, does not clip out the paragraph at all. It leaves the immunity in place for the Federal Reserve. Okay. H.R. 1207 is a congressional call to have an audit by the end and completed by the end of 2010.
So that follows the Constitution, because the Constitution says that the Congress is supposed to regulate the value of the money.
That's the job of the Congress.
Yeah.
And so Congress is doing its job here.
Yeah, okay, good, yeah.
Congress is doing its job. It says, this is your Congress, knock, knock, this is your Congress. We want an audit. Here we are, and here's the law.
Paper. Yeah, that's I like that. Yeah.
Yes.